The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Hello everyone, this is Kevin. I wanted to give you a quick introduction to this recording. This was done at DragonCon 2024, and if you're not aware, this is a convention that takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, over Labor Day weekend every year. This is the world's largest fan-run convention, with approximately 75 to 80,000 attendees each year. And I'm very honored to be one of more than 2,800 volunteers that helped to make the convention happen. Now, this convention covers topics like sci-fi and fantasy, anime, pop culture, science, space, and much, much more. There are more than 30 different programming tracks, along with hundreds of celebrity guests. But the core of why DragonCon is so amazing and why I go back every year is because it is so fan-focused. For the fans, by the fans. The fan discussion panels are just amazing and something to be experienced for yourself. This was my 20th DragonCon. Now, keep in mind that this recording was not done by plugging into the professional sound system or anything. I have a Zoom H2 portable recorder that I just place on the table where the panelists are. So while you should be able to hear all of the panelists just fine, the dynamic nature of the panels with questions and comments coming from the audience means that you might have difficulty hearing some of those. You really do need to attend the convention to get the full experience, but this is a great way to hear about some of the great conversations around different shows. If you do have any questions about the panel or the convention, please feel free to reach out and I'll be glad to help out. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. I know it's Monday, but we can do a little better than that. Hello, everyone. All right, there we go. All right. Appreciate you stopping by. My name is Kevin Batchelder. I am the Assistant Track Director here in the Urban Fantasy Track. For those who've been to any of our previous events, you know we do the Battle of the UF shows. We have the contribution buckets over there where you can donate towards the charity in the name of a show or book bucket or whatever. So if you want to do that, please feel free. We appreciate that. What we're going to do is I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll be talking about Arcane. This, as you can tell by being in the room, it's a fairly intimate crowd, so throw up a hand if there's a question or a topic you want us to go on. One of the things I wanted to mention before we go down the line is here, when I put together notes for a panel in terms of questions when I'm moderating, I usually have a handful, knowing that we're going to have some good conversations. When I put them together for this panel, I got pages and pages.
It's so like there's some depth.
There's depth. There's lots of twists and turns. So we can go in a lot of directions. So I'm going to let the panelists, as well as you, if there's certain things you want to hear us talk about, don't be bashful. Feel free to throw up a hand, all right? Because we want to have fun for the time we're here. And for those who aren't aware, this is actually the first panel discussing Arcane here at DragonCon.
Oh, wow. What an honor.
And big thank you to Carol, who just left the room when I brought up the idea and said we have to talk about this, that she put it on the schedule for me.
Yeah. All
right, let's let our panelists introduce themselves.
Hey y'all, I'm Jay Boyce. I write lit RPG, so fantasy with video game elements, which works really well for this. I have been playing League of Legends since season 1.
Yeah.
So I took a break the last few years because I got sick of them changing everything all the time. But I love the game, love the series, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Jay Boyce.
I'm Aaron Michael Ritchie. I'm the author of The Juniper Wars, which is about 3 sisters on a post-apocalyptic cattle drive. I really like family dynamics, especially dysfunctional family dynamics, which is why I like the show Arcane. And I came at it from like a different point of view. That like I came at the show but we're doing bios, so we're not doing how we
bad. I'm
but
sorry.
Dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna do it, but then I'm like,
do it.
Just do it. Oh wait, it's my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, I am R.E. Carr, author of urban fantasy, horror, comedy, and lit RPG, and in a former life, I used to review and talk about video games. I came to Arcane because most of the League of Legends music videos are on my playlists for writing stuff.
Pop stars.
Yeah, Pop Stars is one, but mostly it's like...
Imagine Dragons from...
Yeah, not just that. We'll get into it, I'm sure, but... Yeah, if you ever need to be inspired to write a fight scene, look up the League of Legends, the videos that they do for each and every one of their international championships. They are phenomenal, and that team actually ended up doing Arcane, so it's great.
Hi, my name is Jessie Ann York. I'm a horror writer whose work has appeared in multiple pro-rate anthologies. My first 2 short stories I ever published were given a shout-out in the Mason section of Best Horror of the Year, Volume 13, and I shortly got a lit agent after that, and we went on sub with my first book, so cross your fingers. I'm on this panel. I'm in the horror track, so I'm so honored to be here, and I hope you have me back. I'm on this panel, obviously, because I cosplay when I'm not writing. I love Vi. I love the show. I came in, I had a boyfriend who played League of Legends, and I loved the characters, and I wasn't into the gameplay, but I just thought the characters were so beautiful. I remember like the first design of Vi and Jinx, and I remember watching the music videos, and I would listen to them. I was in college at the time, like on the way to class.
Get jinxed, man.
Yes, I loved that song. I still listen to it. But yeah, cosplay makes me so happy. It's what I do to take care of myself in between writing novels with my agent. And so I'm so thankful to be here with y'all, and thank y'all for being here on a Monday.
All right. Well, I'll figure that start off with what hopefully is a simple, but maybe not easy question for all of you. We're coming up now on almost 3 years since the show premiered, with season 2 coming in November.
Yeah.
What makes this show so special that almost 3 years after it premiered, you wanted to be on the panel here to talk about it?
Wait, sorry, say it again. I got distracted.
It's Monday. That's understandable. No, with the show being out for almost 3 years, what made you want to be on this panel?
Again, it's because I love the game, to be fair. I saw Carol post that, and I was like, pick me. I would like to go talk about it because, like, the characters are close, near and dear to my heart, and I, like, remember watching it the first time, and I was just like, oh, this makes me so happy. Like, it takes me back to college, and it takes me back to, like, all of the good times I had with my friends, and, like, talking about the characters, and, like, collecting skins, and like, just learning about the lore and the history of the characters, and then seeing that come to life, where I was just like, more. I want more. Mine now.
Awesome. So I'm a coffee shop writer, so I've written I've written tons and tons of novels, and so I was a coffee shop writer, and so during COVID I was like encased in my house, imprisoned, and I was like, I have to write books, and so on one monitor I started writing with Japanese people in a Tokyo coffee shop, so I would be typing, and I'll be like, oh, there's Hiro, he's studying for exams, and I'm like, and that morphed into, I found these collections of video cutscenes from cool video games, right? So the Diablo 4, Intro to Lilith, right? I've watched that a trillion times. And it would just be playing, and I'd be writing, so I'd look up and I'd be like, oh, Lilith, you're so bad. And
that's so good.
Then I stumbled onto a 2-hour League of Legends compilation, and I'm like, with the girl with the, and I know nothing about any of, I've never played League. And so I, the girl with the teddy bear, and I saw James, and all of that stuff, and I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. And so, but, I'm super busy, so when Arcane came out, I'm like, okay, that's that whole League of Legends thing, but, dude, I'm, right.
You watched one episode, didn't you? And think you
No, my daughter said, Dad, you've got to watch it. It will break you. And I'm like, I love stuff. It is like family drama. I have 2 daughters, and they have a very contentious,
relationship.
My youngest daughter's never going to be able to watch it because it will bring up too much, baggage for her. So then that's how I got into it. So I watched it, and I'm like, oh my God, they kill people, it's so tragic. And that 3rd episode, it just ruins you, right? It just ruins you. And then you see the time skip. So I'm a fan.
Well, for me, I grew up in the dark times, the 80s. Where video game adaptation was not synonymous with, shall we say, quality, notwithstanding Raul Julia in Street Fighter giving the greatest single monologue in a bad movie ever.
Wow.
So I was just waiting, because I loved video games, and I love movies and stuff like that, and I just always wanted one to be right, and we'd get close, we'd get something that was tolerable. When you're going, Mortal Kombat isn't that bad, in comparison. And then finally they said they were doing an animated show based on League of Legends. It's like, oh God, it's like a tower looter shooter type thing. Where are they going to find plot? Oh, but the music videos are kind of cool. And then I watched it, and I went, oh my God, this is the video. Between this and Castlevania, Netflix has just made video game adaptations that don't suck. And that just ignited a spark in my heart. And I seriously think we wouldn't have Fallout. We wouldn't have The Last of Us. These great video game shows now. Like, movies we're still waiting on. Thank you, Borderlands, for reminding us what video game adaptations were. So I think as long as that, it's just that touch-tone spark in my heart of something I'd been waiting for so long. And that's why I'm still talking about it today. Because the things I love now directly came from it.
For me, as a queer horror writer, a lot of my stories are about women with very complex relationships, growing up queer, what that does to friendships and relationships with family. And so I think why I'm so obsessed with the show, the female relationships in the show are just incredible, and it's for the female gaze. I absolutely love how I love the designs before, but oh my God, Like, I was like, oh yeah, Vi's cool when I saw her first design. And then I saw her in the show, and I was like, what did they do to her? Like, oh my God. Like, oh. But yeah, it's Caitlin and Vi have such a beautiful, great, strong, queer relationship. And they get to be strong, powerful women. And I just love the way it was depicted. And I know that's why it's so important to so many other queer fans. But I think that's the element that has me still talking about it to this day.
Awesome. Yeah. What about you folks in the audience? Anyone wants to quickly share on that same topic? I mean, it's a Monday morning at Dragdown, and we're all here for this panel. Yes.
So I didn't really know that much about League of Legends either, but I was like, oh, everybody's talking about this show, this trending, and it got me curious. I said, it is League of Legends, so let me find out what it's about. And I was blown away completely. Yeah, I know I'm just all like, Jinx, please, justice for Jinx.
And just so everybody knows, there are like thousands of pages of lore.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much more they get pulled from. Yeah.
To pull from.
And I actually wonder if, even though they said season 2 is going to be the last, if this is just the first of League of Legends.
They're going to go to the other places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. That's cool.
Yes.
So I think the reason that I'm still talking about it and loving it so much is watching that internal struggle between Powder and Jinx just throughout the entire first season, and seeing her trying so desperately to maybe get back to that normalcy and then just completely losing it at the end. And I think that cliffhanger is what keeps me talking about it and gets me so excited for this upcoming season.
Yeah, it was definitely a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, I found, I don't know if you folks, I found some great videos on YouTube that had like psychologists and other folks looking at the Jinx. Oh, yeah, that could have been its own panel.
Yes.
So for me, my introduction to it was, it's Thursday night and I'm not going anywhere and I'm bored. I'm going to give this an episode or two.
One episode, I know that one.
And I am.
You didn't sleep that night.
I have a problem now.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was everything. I agree with everything everybody said. One of the things that I keep going back to is how much detail there is built into every level of the show. Like just one of the things about like Caitlin and Vi, cupcakes. Like from that first balcony, there's a cupcake on that first balcony, all the way through to the last episode where she takes the lid off of the thing and there is a cupcake. You know, Jesus, I'm not that crazy. And also just a plug, if anybody is not familiar with Overly Sarcastic Productions, they are a YouTube channel. They did a fantastic detailed diatribe on their family relationship in the show. If you have not encountered that, go see it. It makes it's the cherry on it's the little thing on the cupcake.
Well, here's the thing about the cupcakes though, that's really fun and part of the cliffhanger and stuff like that. And I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, this is how they're introducing all of their special abilities, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like.
But they did it so organically. It didn't just feel like,
it was
yeah.
Like, this is so cool, like how everything just like started, and it made it was beautifully done.
You hear the name Victor, and then you go, oh.
There are so many to
Yeah.
come. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Fantastic. And this is why I knew we had to talk about it if we could. For me, I'm a big fan of sisterly relationships.
Yes.
Shows
Yes.
like Lost Girl, Winona Earp. So when I saw the one here, I was just deeper into it too, and then we all know what happens there. But maybe we can now, panelists, talk a little bit about some of, and I don't want to constrain you because there are so many great ones, some of the relationships, the found family, some of that dynamic, the sisterly bond that started at the other end. You already started to talk about it, but do you want to talk a little more about your favorite ones of the show?
Favorite relationship?
Yeah.
Relationship, found family, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
I've talked about Caitlin and Vi. I think the most tragic relationship, and I think it was hard for me to watch because I am an older sister, was Vi and Powder, especially at the beginning before the time skip. It's very hard to watch as I'm an eldest daughter, I have 2 youngest brothers, and I can see it's just so tragic because Vi is trying to protect Jinx. She really is, Powder. And in doing that, it hurts their relationship. And you can see both sides. You can totally see why Powder feels left out and angry, but you can also see where Vi is coming from. And so it's just beautifully tragic. And I love how some people have pointed out, there was this audio going around, because Vi is Powder's only family. And then that one scene at the very end of that time skip, where they're about to part ways, and Powder is screaming for Vi, someone pointed out that it almost sounds like she says mom at one point.
Yeah.
And I never heard it before. I went back and rewatched the show while I was working on these gauntlets because I had a lot of time. And I heard it. And I'll end it there. It speaks for itself.
So full disclosure, I am a neurodivergent queer author with daddy issues who never felt accepted. So for me, the relationship that unfortunately felt the most true and cut deep was actually Silka and Jinx. Because as much as Jinx was horrible, it was seeing a relationship where a not perfect person accepted someone perfectly. And it gave so much depth to what could have been a one-note video game villain. And all of a sudden, you're like, he's bad, he's wrong. But you're kind of rooting for these two against the world. And him not knowing how to be a father, but then into, that moment at the statue when he's like, what a daughter does. And he, even though she didn't understand, no matter what, no matter how much it would give him everything he wanted, he couldn't give her up. And that unconditional acceptance and love from a villain was so deliciously intriguing that it always resonated with me.
Yeah, it added a level of complexity to Silco that was really, but he was still such a scumbag that I hated it, and the whole thing was so sick, right? And that disease.
Is it wrong that I saw it as beautiful?
Man.
Probably.
It's complex.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. He's a bad person. And they did a great job establishing him as a villain, right? There's a lot of
not an anti-hero, pure villain.
I call that kick the puppy scene. So that, basically, Avengers Infinity War was a big long kick the puppy scene, where by the end you're like, I hate Thanos. And in the second movie, they killed him twice.
Yeah.
They're like, saying we could do Thanos. So I think they really set that up well. I had a hard time. I really liked the 3 episodes. The time skip threw me, and then they spent a lot of time with Jace. And the character I really liked was Victor.
Oh,
he's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
and Victor was so much more interesting.
We love the broken ones.
Then oh my god, Jace, and he had so much screen time, and I'm so bored.
He's so in love with Jace.
What's that?
He's in love with Jace.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then he has his assistant Sky, who's right. And then when Sky dies, I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible and awesome. I love that elevated And this is why I need to watch more anime, because anime does this really well. That elevated emotions, right?
Yeah.
You know, in America, I've been accused of being histrionic in my work because I like those elevated emotions. And this show, man, they would just kill people, and they're like, oh, okay.
And in very creative and explosive ways.
And I really like the Caitlyn character, like making the that she's a rich cop.
Yeah.
And I think and the dynamic of Vi was really good.
A good show of privilege, privilege being there, but not necessarily evil.
Yeah, I thought that was super, super interesting. And then the Vander, as a father, and then Vander died. I'm like, oh my God.
Don't worry, he's back.
Oh my God.
He'll come back.
Oh yeah,
he's coming back
and furry.
Yeah, he's coming back. I'm so excited to see him as Warwick. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm too sorry. I was just
I'm
really excited. Sorry.
We're excited.
This is the way I love panels, when everybody gets excited about everybody else's comments when they hit those touch points.
Well, and Singe's character in particular is actually fascinating to me, because I love seeing he was trying to do things but is willing to make sacrifices, and that was a really interesting, and he's a scientist through and through, and he's going to do some great and terrible things. But there is, and I love Vander. He's I'm just he tried so hard and did so much when he's oh my gosh, I just did this, and now I didn't anticipate these consequences, and having to face that and trying to raise them right. And it tears at my heartstrings when he goes away, but I'm so glad he's coming back. And I don't love Jace. I really don't.
I think he's the definition of punchable good guy.
Yes. But it's really interesting to see his descent into power madness.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
He's it's just showing the counterpoint to Silco in a way.
Right. And he and Caitlyn were friends, but it's watching that friendship grow apart as he makes different decisions, and that's also kind of heartbreaking, because he was one of the few people who she had, and she now has to go and find new family because he's gone on a path on his own, and that's one of the things is it's all of these people who are finding their family, and how it's also been almost all of them get torn apart. It's
sometimes repeatedly. They're let's give you a little no, maybe hope, no.
What about the audience? Any of the relationships or found family cards you want to point out? Yes.
My favorite character is Jinx. I am the youngest, but I really like the dynamic of how you can see Jinx, who's gone through, the time skip, and how she's changed by being stuck in the past. She's stuck in the cell. She hasn't changed. She's, trapped there, and just seeing that clash as she gets to see Jinx, that moment when she lights the smoke, and they're fighting, the fact that Jinx is so into it, and then Vi just kind of turns around and is who is this behind me? There's this moment of I can't recognize my own sister. And then at the end, when Silco is you're perfect, you've always been perfect, even though the scene is happening, and you're oh my God, and Vi's over there not asking her to choose Jinx and Powder.
Yeah.
And, this man, the villain of the entire show, saying, you don't have to change.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You just made that perfect point. Vi is effectively frozen in carbonite, and she can't, and the main conflict is she's still looking for that little girl, and Silco is the path of no, I accept the woman that you've become.
I love the jealousy element too. Because as I can understand, as an older sister, with my younger brothers, but I can also understand Jinx's perspective. I had an older cousin that didn't want to spend time with me because she was older and stronger, and so that rage and jealousy when she sees her with Caitlyn the first time, and I love it because Caitlyn and Vi, between them, it's a queer relationship, but Jinx sees it as another woman, a sister, replacing her.
Just stole my sister.
Yeah,
I love how complex it is.
Yeah, so much envy, and it's just beautifully portrayed. And they don't they don't hammer you with it. They just let you experience it.
Yes.
I love Echo. He's my favorite.
I love every name that comes up. We just all.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
I just really think it's interesting how when Vi is caught by the fireflies and like kind of caught is the word, but and she's talking to Echo and they're like seeing Jinx in these two very different ways because Vi can't let go, but Echo has like seen what she has done at this point.
Yeah.
I think that Echo and Jinx's relationship is like really interesting, and their fight seems like really profound. And yeah.
Well, and it's also really interesting in that Echo has had to change from this little guy who's like, oh, I got a tip, to I am now the one who's in charge of leading and protecting this community, and like trying to right the wrongs that he has done. I can actually see a lot of Vander in Echo, and he took up that mantle of protecting the Undercity and protecting the people there. And so it's really interesting to see him step into those shoes and become the leader who, and like my brain is still on like, oh my gosh, how is he going to get his ultimate? And like, how are they going to do that? Because that is going to be, I like time moving, and I want to see how it's done.
They imply it in that fight.
Yeah.
The music video is just gorgeous. But yeah, the switching back and forth, and I love it because you're right. He does see her as Jinx, but there's this hurt, sad part of him that can reflect and see her as Powder too, and that's ultimately how he wins the fight. Is he's reflecting on the fights they had when they were little kids.
Because that core of you is always still there. And, so much depth, much wow.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent stuff. When I did, I think it was my first rewatch after enjoying it and then going back to rewatch. I was very much struck at the introduction of Jinx, if you will, after the first set of 3 episodes. And it got me thinking, and I made some notes. I'm like, I enjoy a lot of shows. That's my thing. It's media. But this first season, there are so many emotional high points.
Yeah. And low points.
And I mean, so I stopped making notes on all of them, from Vander to Jinx lighting the flare, to the reuniting, everything, you know. So I'm just curious, maybe starting in this end, is there one moment or emotional moment that had the most impact on you throughout the series?
I think it's when Powder is like, I was just trying to help.
Yeah.
And the slap.
That breaks me. And I'm just like, she's like, I just, like, and that realization that everything that she's been trying to do and everything that she's like, oh, I finally did it. I was going to hurt the bad guys. And like, I did this. And then realizing like, holy shit, I just killed my friends. And that sinking, like, it gives me the chills every time.
Yeah, I mean, the 3rd episode, and that was what my daughter was like. I mean, if you only have to watch the first 3 episodes, right? And it really is a full storyline. And that whole scene is so tragic and so, like, and it's an interesting idea, though, like, to narratively, like, that time skip, I wasn't a fan, right? Because it felt like a different show, and then everyone's different, and I had an idea, like, you know, I'm a writer, so I see something that's cool, and I make up a backstory about it. So my backstory for Jinx was very different than the show, and I you know, I didn't really, I'm not that bright, so I didn't really put together that Powder became Jinx. Like, I didn't see that coming.
Okay.
And so, like, but like talking on the panel, I see the power of that narrative in the character of Echo, right? But to answer the original question, you know, I you know what Jay Boy said again and again and again. That 3rd episode just is so, and the Sky and Victor. You know,
are you just going to take all the great moments so I don't get one?
Just those 2, and I already mentioned. So Ari Carr, you go, girl.
Okay, well, those first 2, not to take any. I mean, those absolutely are. I mean, but the moment that I'll pick is the baptism of Jinx after she's hurt. That moment where she finally lets go of that last vestige of powder and embraces Silco, because it is the dark night of the soul of the character that leads to the rebirth of Jinx. And yes, you have to have a sort of a villain in the story, and she is a villain of pure chaos. She is effectively this universe's version of the Joker. Mm-hmm. And that letting go was both horrifying and cathartic, and it wasn't taken by the two people in front of me.
I'm going to make the argument that they set her turning up into Jinx perfectly. I totally saw it coming. And not just because I'd seen the character, but there is this really important moment where Vi leaves Jinx behind to go get Vander. And she's in the room and she starts having a panic attack. And that moment for me, like thinking about it now, I'm like getting sick to my stomach. The way she screams and cries and grips on her hair. And in some ways it's understandable, but it's such a severe reaction. I think I'm like, oh, there it is. That's that little hint of it. It's a rubber band and it's getting pulled. Mm-hmm. And you're starting to see the stress there. The other moment with Powder, these are all early on things that set up later, but I just think they're so important. The show does such a great thing with violence. It's such a violent show, but they set it up and they give it meaning. And I absolutely love the very first episode where they have that perspective shot. You don't even think of it as a perspective shot, but that slow-mo moment where the gang is getting in a fight and Jinx is sitting there watching it. Time slows down and she's really absorbing those hits that they're taking to the face. And you feel it as the audience. I remember watching it and I was like, oh, I couldn't be in a fight. Like, and you relate to Jinx in that moment. You're like, I don't want to take a punch. And that's what they say to her, like, you can't even take a punch. And you as an audience member are feeling that with her. You know, you're taking that violence very serious. They focus on the bloody noses. And it's very organic, tangible violence that you can feel. And it's such an important scene because later when you have the more grander violence taking place, you know, you have that setup at the beginning that walks you into it. But I just love seeing how horrified, you know, she's frozen, she's watching this violence. And then when we see her again as Jinx, that's gone. And she's not taking punches because she fights in a very different way from Vi, which that's a whole different conversation. I love the difference in their fighting styles.
Always a distance.
Yes.
Well, and they set it up really well. She's like a super freaking awesome sharpshooter from the beginning. And like, I'm trying to figure, that always bothers me that they didn't realize that. I'm like, how did they not just...
Because they're older kids and the baby sister is always ignored. I know from experience.
I mean, yes, that's also true.
But you see how she's... that perspective shot where she's watching, you learn that she's looking and paying attention, and then you see it later outwardly. I love the scene when she comes back to their little hangout spot and she sees the bird and she looks at the bird like, there's a lot of scenes where Jinx is just looking and observing, and it's so important to her character, and they set that up in the beginning during that scene, and it's very subtle, but it's there and it's so important.
Yeah, she is definitely a sponge, and she has soaked up a lot of dirty dishwater.
I love the way she looks at people.
Yeah. That was a good metaphor.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah.
It's like I'm a writer or something.
Wow. That was good.
Yeah, I saw in one of the analysis videos, someone mentioned, and it really kind of just caught me and got me nodding, but they said in terms of talking about the powder to Jinx transition, if you will, they said the seeds of Jinx are in powder and the remnants of powder are in Jinx.
Wow. Absolutely.
And that was one of those when like little hairs going,
okay. I got the shivers. How about you guys?
The seeds of Jinx are in powder and the remnants of powder are in Jinx. Pretty interesting there. What about you folks? Emotional touchstones? Yes.
It's been quite a while since I've watched it. I want nothing more than to run home and watch it again now.
We've done our job.
The first thing I thought of when you asked the question was when you see the moment when Vi and Claire first get separated, and she's kind of breaking down, and as the oldest daughter with younger sisters who grew up with some traumatic circumstances and without parents, and I'm watching my little sister realize that I'm not coming for her. I'm about to cry right now. Like I can't.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch.
I mean, it's beautiful when you get something that should be so ridiculous, so animated, so separate, but because they kept the emotional core so true, it's like, you think about it now, and like I said, I've got goosebumps just thinking about a show that came out in 2021. Maybe.
And another hand in the back.
Back to Echo. In the, I'm pretty sure it's by what I can't remember what it's called, but in that like area with the tree and the mural, when you're looking at the mural, you can see like Powder is on the mural as Powder.
Yeah.
It's like so obvious that Echo misses her, and how Vi is even looking at her, and it's just so clear that they're like reminiscing. Just the fact that they can't go back, and even in that moment when Vi can kind of see this is how it used to be, she can't move on from there and use it to like further her motivation to do things. She's just trying to go back.
It's really hard to let go, isn't it?
Yes.
Going back to what you said about the scene where Jinx tried to help, but she ended up killing her whole family. So I remember watching that scene for the first time. It was just so I kept pausing the screen over and over again because it's like, oh, I don't want to watch this. Because as soon as the aftermath happened, she's just Vi's just looking there in horror. And then next thing you know, you just hear Jinx say, "I did it." I was like, oh. I was like, oh no.
You're expecting that, aren't you? That traditional narrative that the plucky kid is going to come in at the last minute and save everything.
Well, yeah. It's like I know it's going to happen because even before I'm like, I know it's going to happen, but a part of me is hoping it doesn't happen because this is going to be painful to watch. But the thing about it is during that scene where she's, Vi gets upset and slaps Jinx and says, "I told you to stay away. You're nothing but a Jinx," and all that stuff. And it's like at that moment, Jinx is confused. She's crying and stuff. She doesn't realize what she did. And Vi could have done something more than just slap her. But at the same time, she was like, she looks at her for a split second and realizes who she is. And instead of like taking her with her when she walks away, she just walks away. And that makes you think, did she show mercy because of the fact that she knew that she was just a little girl and she didn't understand? But at the same time, she was just angry. She was still angry and didn't want to like see her right now. Because it was just a moment. She just watched not only both of her watch her dad, their dad like fight the other people and stuff, which is a great scene. That's how you know where Vi got her fighting style from. You just box and stuff. It's like now you watch your whole family fight, but then this random explosion happens, and your whole family's dead, and you're bearing that burden after all this time of being stray kids and stuff, fighting against a system that's putting you down every single day. And now you're in this predicament, and you just don't know what to do, so you just walk away from the situation.
It's important to recognize that Vi is still a child at that point. And, like, she's just experienced something completely traumatic and is trying to process. And, like, I just remember the glasses with the blood stain. And, like, when they see that and, like, just the realization sets in. But, like, that's the thing. Vi is a child. Yes, kids on the street have to grow up faster. But she's still just a kid trying to, like, do her best. And so, like, how, in that moment, she hasn't had time to process her emotions. And a lot of the time when you're really angry, one of the best things to do is just walk away and calm down.
Grief makes monsters of you, and she's just gone through a split second of horrific grief. And I just loved that a show finally didn't take the automatic all protagonists instantly take the high road. We actually got a very realistic reaction. And it's just, you can see them create each other in a single scene without really needing to say it explicitly.
And she was going to walk back. It's like you said, she just slapped her sister. She needs to get away. She was going to come back, and that makes it even more painful.
Unfortunately, Powder didn't know she was going to come back.
Yeah, there's no way my youngest daughter's ever going to watch the show. Or Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, right? My daughter watches, like, horrific horror stuff. Like, she'll watch, like, people being, like, Saw's her favorite movie, right? But the minute like there's any animal on the screen, she's like, nope. And if any family stuff, she's like, nope, I'm out. It's interesting that we keep talking about the end of the third episode and not the really well done final scene, really the climax of the show at the table with the with Silco, Caitlin.
I've been saving that, but go.
But narratively speaking, that's why like having the emotionally most intense scene, right? Arguably,
The climax.
having the climax of emotions and the whole in that third episode is so dangerous narratively because we keep going back to it, right? So it's in a sense the rest of the show is dealing with the trauma, and then you have too much Jace.
There is always too much Jace.
So it'll be interesting to see the second season. Like it'll be interesting to experience the second season, like. Because again, you're haunted by it's so well done, but you should have the so well done part at the very end.
I don't know. The end is very well done too.
Yeah, but we're not talking about it.
Not yet.
And I will say, Jace was a beloved character for a lot of the gamers because he was one of the few normal dudes. Not like he was not monstrous.
Oh
yeah. And he did provide a counterpoint, but it was interesting because he was the counterpoint in a way to Jinx of power and what it does to you. One went to chaos and one went to almost extreme order.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised we're talking about that third episode so much because as writers, we're interested in the craft and how the story comes out, and you cannot have the rest of the show without that third. It is that pivotal moment between the first and second act, and it's so well done, and you wouldn't have that beautiful climax without that moment, period. And so I totally understand why we're talking about it so much, and it jumps so perfectly into the time skip too.
Yeah, I think it's almost like a prologue. It's a complete prologue, and they did the origin story completely, totally, thoroughly, wrecked your heart, and then they're actually telling the story that they wanted to tell. It is almost two just completely separate arcs.
Yeah.
And when you take it that way, it flows beautifully.
It's a feat to pull it off in one season. Most people would have a full season dedicated to that. So to switch between it so gracefully, I think, and to wrap it up at the end with that beautiful climax. It's so well done. Not many shows. I can't think of another show that has a time skip like that.
Yeah, not nearly as well.
First season.
Maybe because it's a video game adaptation, it's doing that setup before the opening credits. It's just doing it over 3 episodes.
Which is...
And it's that anime, like fast, right? You know?
Yeah.
I grew up watching Young and the Restless, like soap operas, and like nothing would change for like 6 months. Oh, yeah. And it'd be the same thing for 6 months, and then you would have the thing. And now, now it's like change and new and change and new. And,
It's a masterclass on pacing because it really keeps you going.
In most animes, their time skip is after how many arcs? Like the time skip traditionally in anime is after seasons and seasons and seasons. It's just amazing how they pulled it off in one.
Well, and part of that is also that they wanted to get people to what they were familiar with. They wanted to introduce the things, and you don't get much of Caitlin and Jace in the first 3 episodes, and you don't get a lot of Victor and all of these, and Heimerdinger and all of these really important people. Oh, I love Heimerdinger, by the way.
I just love saying his name, I won't lie. Heimerdinger.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a show that rewards you on rewatches.
It does.
Because rather than being bored, I've seen it, you're like, oh, now I need to pay attention more to this, and this is coming in that, and so forth. And that's special. We don't always get that. Well, you folks started to touch on it, and I'd like to go into a little more depth on the climax.
The second climax.
Second climax.
Yeah, shall we say the end of the season climax, since there are multiples. Who wants to jump in first?
I would have done it the way a lot of times I watch stuff, and I'm a very easy audience. I like most. I was on the Madam Web, and I cried at the end of Madam Web.
I watched that,
and so I'm a very easy audience. But sometimes when something happens, especially with like Arcane, when it's so well done, and I'm wincing oh my god, are they going to be able to pull it off? I think, okay, I could have done... this is the way I would have done it. This narratively, this is a better way, or thematically, this is a better way. But like that final scene was like really pitch perfect for the whole thing. I wouldn't have changed anything, right? The whole, and even the Silco's declaration of love at the end. I mean, it was this tragic, brutal, like weird, and I love Jinx is like she's the like, and I love the Joker character. Like Chaos Demons are awesome. It was just really, it was so satisfying and so and then the whole cliffhanger thing. I'm like, come on, don't.
No, that was a good
cliffhanger me. I don't want to be cliffhangered.
If you're gonna cliffhang, you do it like Arcane does.
It is not a cliffhanger to me because I would. Okay, well, I mean, to be fair, with knowing about the world and the characters that they have and what they have available, I'm like, they're all dead. They're just dead.
Yeah.
There is. I'm like, I literally went through the characters in my mind. Are there any characters who could save this situation? No, there's not. Okay, there's really just not. I was like, Braum has his shield, but it's not gonna he's not gonna be there. He's not a Piltover character. And like, I'm like, okay, so who do we have as our Piltover characters who are coming up and it made me really happy.
That is the point of no return. That is what that climax is. It is firmly stating, okay, we will never see Powder ever again. This is Jinx, Vi, and Jinx. They're not going to be able to have a future together because of what she's done. There's no chance for peace. When something like that happens, there's going to be a war now. It's the point of no return is what that
and it's that
is.
Cutting horrible irony that they're voting for peace and then it gets snatched away, and it's so delicious and so painful because you have the huge macro stakes in 1 second with the micro in the other, and that just scene with the final scene with Jinx and the cannon and the shooting, it's like you've given that Indiana Jones moment. You have shown exactly who the character is, and now she's iconic, and she's the villain.
Yeah.
It's really fun to shoot that rocket in game, though.
Yeah.
It's really satisfying to watch everybody blow up.
Oh, there's
a hand in the back.
Yes, go.
Who do you think makes it in the end out of the council?
Jace.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so I couldn't rewatch the last episode right now, so I don't remember who's there. But honestly, is Jace in that room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jace is going to make it through. Is Heimer in the room?
No, Heimer's down with Echo.
And Victor.
Yeah, and Victor is Victor is special.
Those three will survive.
They have game characters. Yeah.
They're all dead.
The plot armor was non-existent. They be dead, yo.
And to be fair, Jace does get like power armor, so that's probably how he survives.
He survives because you have to have somebody that you want to punch but is still a good guy in season 2.
He's towards the back, right? He's near the door.
Yeah.
He's probably gonna like hit something and fall through the floor. Is what my guess is.
Like one of the first
something X-Tech is going to save him, and he's going to have survivor's guilt as a season 2 arc. I'm calling it in advance.
Now that I say that, his little hammer thing does shoot out, so he could shoot something out and like intercept. And that might only kill, like, the front half of the people instead of everyone. So that's my prediction.
Yes.
I have a question for the panel then about this last episode, and it's about Vi, Jinx, and Caitlyn. How do you think, with Jinx literally blowing up their future and more than likely Caitlyn's mother, how do you think that's going to impact Vi and Caitlyn's relationship in the second season?
Whew. It's going to be messy. It's going to be messy. I think we'll see Vi struggle a little bit with wanting to have Jinx back in her life, but I think that's the end. Like, there'll be little moments so it's not cold, but that's done. For Caitlyn and Vi, I really don't know. I do know it's going to be messy. I'll be curious to see how long that conflict plays out. Like, if they have a conversation or several conversations, we know they're going to have to talk about it. But yeah, Caitlyn's going to look at Vi, whether she wants to or not, a little bit differently.
And she'll see that your sister is my mother's murderer. Okay.
I'm hoping, though, that just for the queer representation, that they might actually have... They need... It's just so refreshing to have a not salacious, not queer-baity relationship. So, as much as I'm hoping that it gives some emotional constant for season 2, that we can kind of root for those crazy kids, but I also hope it's deliciously, terribly complicated.
And I think it will be, right?
Oh yeah, I have faith in these writers. They have earned my faith.
I think Caitlin is going to mention a lot. Oh, we have to get back to the underground. We have to get back against them, and it's going to make Vi. Those are still her people, and so it's going to cause. Every time she says that, it's going to hurt.
It's going to be hard of Vi having to be the representative, the good underground person, and I think that's going to cause a lot of stress in their relationship.
I think Echo is the best underground person.
Yes, but the Fireflies got blamed for a lot.
That's true, and they will probably take the blame for this too.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it could be interesting is that idea of the perception of them versus what they are actually doing for the people.
They're going to blame the entire Undercity for Jinx's one explosion.
But now with Silco out of the way, the question is, who leads? And I'm actually thinking it's probably Singed because he's going to... He's the one who's... it's really funny seeing Shimmer. And I'm like, okay, so this is how he's doing his stuff. And, his ult is actually very different than a lot of the other ones in that he's just, tossing something behind him. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that one for me. Is because I'm like, all of the other ults so far have made sense. I can see where they're doing this. Where are they just going to be and suddenly I'm tossing you over my shoulder check.
And that's why it's such a good show, is because they're taking such huge risks. And they're taking such huge chances. And I can't imagine they would, Season 2 would play it safe. Especially since it is an end of the show, right? So they can really take a lot of risks.
And then they go to Demacia!
So...
But I do think it's great, though, that they know in advance that the second one is the final, because there's nothing worse than getting Babylon 5'd and getting oh, no, you don't have any. Oh, wait, you do. So I'm hoping that leads to not a happy ending, but a satisfying one.
Why not a happy ending?
It's Arcane and Jinx is involved.
But this also leads perfectly to the topic of Season 2. And we've now had some speculation on where it appears the story elements might go. But maybe if each of you could talk a little bit about what you personally really want to see in Season 2.
Well, there are 3 characters that I know should be showing up, is my guess. So there is Warwick, which is Vander. The Shimmer has made him a werewolf. There is Twitch, which I'm really looking forward to seeing because he's like a poison human rat. A sentient human rat who's like mafia gangster. So that should be fun. And then there's Oriana, which is this clockwork, and I'm thinking it's the shopkeeper's daughter. And she's one of my favorite characters. So I'm how are they going to pull that in? So those are 3 that I'm really looking forward to seeing the next ones because I'm I want to see all my characters.
Well, they did leave some space in the cast after Jinx's explosion.
I mean, none of those people are named people. I don't care about them.
Okay. One, I'm going to keep hope alive. So this is my hopeful. My daughter's gay, and so she was we need to have happy gay couples being happy.
Yes.
So I hope Caitlin and I've seen people married who were man, they have a lot against them.
Yeah.
So okay, here's the thing. Jinx as a main villain is like Wanda being the main villain in Multiverse of Madness. I don't think she is the main villain.
But I think she's the main point of contention.
But not the main villain. So she doesn't take over as Silco.
No, she's more a force of nature. She's a force of chaos.
And that's exactly...
And she has to be resolved or contained in some way.
So there has to be the rise of another villain.
I think the other villain is, I can't remember the counselor's name. I think it's her family.
Yeah, her they did set them up. Mel's family coming in.
I love that character.
Yeah. With a more warlike...
And they're going to come in and be like, you killed my daughter. You can all die. I'm taking over these portals. Thank you. Give me the money.
But I think it's going to be more the rise of the people. There's a power vacuum now. It's going to be all of those people rising up and almost Games of Throning it, I think is what the season is going to be more of. And it's all revolving around one insane force of nature. And it's going to almost be a race of who can either contain it or weaponize it. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic that's not exactly what you've seen in other shows.
I could see Mel's parents trying to weaponize Jinx.
Yeah. Because, you could just use her to blow stuff up.
Yeah. Oh, you can't control this, so now we have to step in.
Yeah.
But my final thing, the last piece of hope I have, and this is a long shot, I understand, keep hope alive. I'm a writer. It takes a lot of hope. Is to have a reconciliation between Jinx and Vi.
I don't know.
I want that.
You can want it, but is it the best thing for the story? Because Powder is gone.
Right. And there's establishing a new relationship.
The amount of atonement required, I don't know can be done in a single season of streaming that would be satisfying. But I also don't want her to just be, big bad fight, squish.
Right.
I'm hoping it's interesting.
It has to be really set up, right?
Yeah. I like what you said about her being a force of nature, and I think that will be her character arc, is because there is that power vacuum, and she's the one who killed Silco. People are going to push her into that leadership role, but that's not what Jinx is about. It's not about leading, it's about chaos and fun. And so now that we firmly established that she is Jinx, I think we're going to see this character arc where we go from, this being about vengeance and spite against Vi to, I'm fun and chaotic and I just want to blow stuff up because I like it.
Let's see the world burn.
Let's see the world burn. And I think she's actually, in some ways, the chaos she creates may actually help Vi and Caitlin down the road. I could see that. I think it'll become like a Joker and Batman kind of thing where they infinitely chase each other, and there'll be a weird, it's never quite capture her.
The most satisfying resolution may be no resolution for Jinx herself, but the other characters living with the force of Jinx. And I think ultimately Vi has to at some point accept that Powder, she needs to mourn Powder. And she needs to, if she's ever going to have any chance, she has to accept that Jinx is Jinx. And until that happens, there is no path forward. And I hope we get to see that torment and that growth. But I hope it's not trite or easy or what I expect. I want to be surprised because that's the best thing this show can do.
Yeah, I think it will end with them infinitely chasing each other.
Yeah.
There will be almost this heartwarming thing of, I really want to catch her,
The dog chasing the car. You wouldn't know what to do when you get there.
Yeah.
It's like that, there's a Will Ferrell movie called Stranger Than Fiction. Where he's in this fictional story and the author's trying to kill him. And so there's that point where I forget the guy who plays the Arthur. Anyway,
Will Ferrell?
Like, this is the only way the story ends right. You have to die.
Yes.
This is it. The story's
they may kill her. I don't know.
It's like the best work she's ever written ever. You have to die. And he's willing to do that for the story to turn out well. And then she changes.
Yeah, that's another option. They may have to kill her. I don't know.
They might.
But yeah.
But
it's kind of like this Jinx and Vi. If just tied up in a nice neat bow and they're sisters again and chummy, that's not right. That
can't happen. Yeah.
I think the only way Jinx will ever have any sort of redemption is probably in her death.
See, and that's such a, so I hang out with a lot of recovering drug addicts and alcoholics. Yeah. And watching these people who are forces, talk about forces of chaos, but they're dumb, far less cool forces of chaos. Watching them put their lives back together again and to find, and to rebuild their family is it's better, because, I don't want to see Jinx become the Joker, right? The Joker is irredeemable, he's crazy, and, death is the only thing. That, having her have some sort of recovery arc, right, would be, that's dreaming, but I'm hopeful.
That's the thing about the Joker, is the Joker doesn't die. He gets to remain that force of nature, and there's always a chase going on.
Yeah.
But he's very lonely.
Well, I don't think he is. I think he really enjoys being himself.
He's got Batman, his one true love.
He's very happy.
And I'm going to say, from a purely practical point of view, the plot armor is strong with these characters, and they will not die.
That's right.
It's
how you take them to the edge and enjoy.
So if they did something like the dog chasing the car, right? And they're like, but it's playful, right? And having this, like, it's a game for both of them, and they're like, I'm going to get you this time, and like, I don't think so. And like, it's less violent, they're pulling punches.
You have watched Arcane. It's going to be violent.
I would, but not like...
Pulling punches? Yeah, I don't think.
But I would love that they're like, it becomes then this kind of, like, playful chase. That we're going to be enemies, but we're going to be like frenemies forever.
Yeah.
That would be, I would find that satisfying.
Go back and watch the Get Jinxed music video. The very first one they ever released. I really think that's what they're leading up for her, is this pure, joyful state. Yes, I see a hand.
What do you guys think about, if we might get this kind of like, maybe not plot twist, but Savika? Like
I
taking
love
over
her.
Silco, and because she has a relationship with Jinx, do you think Jinx will follow her? And now Savika is just like, I got Jinx, and Jinx, she can't lead, but she wants to do that chaos. And Savika's like, I know, I've been dealing with you your whole life. I
mean, that is possible, but it's so playing with fire. You can only manage it so much.
Right, I think
You see, they had a teaser, and Savika's the one who saves Jinx in that teaser. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it.
They're kind of implying that those two, whenever you have a big death in the family, because they were a family, those two women are going to have to come together. And I do think it would be a very complex, beautiful relationship.
A powerful
now that man's gone, they have to come together to survive.
I think that Savika's going to die for Jinx at some point.
I'm
sorry, we're going to show all of Jinx's parental figures over and over again.
It's how it works in urban fantasy.
We're running out of time.
Do you have a character whose your opinion of them over the course of the show has changed the most? Like maybe like for you looked at them and were like, oh, I don't like what they've done with this character, but like by the end of the show you were like, oh, actually yes I do, or somebody you thought was like, oh, I don't like who this person is as a person, and then by the end of it you're like, no, actually this person, I have a lot more respect for them than I did when I started.
By the end of the panel, I'm thinking differently about Silco because of what people are saying.
I would say Silco was probably my character because he started a bit one note and a bit evil, and by the end I'm like, he was doing it for his daughter. He had one noble core, and I could respect that and still be kind of glad he got killed instead of Caitlyn or Vi.
We're just about out of time, folks. We do appreciate you all coming. We have a giveaway. You will look down on the top of the right leg on your chair. If you're looking for a green dot, we have a couple of D.R. Perry books to give you. Green dot. Might be a chair.
Treasure hunt!
Yeah, might be on a chair nearby you.
I think you
can find it. No, looking for green.
Is it in the middle? Like
I'm blue-green colorblind, so if you can't find it, I take it.
Remember the whole dress thing?
Easter egg hunt.
Blue. Blue? All right, blue gets it.
Yeah.
Like blue.
Yeah, we don't want to be ableist against the colorblind girl up here.
Got your books right here.
Blue-green.
Please remind you to rate the sessions you attend in the app.
Although I can tell those
share thoughts. Let us know if you want to have more Arcane or anything else on the track. And let's give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you so much. You had great questions.
Please come up and get magnets.
You've been listening to a special presentation of Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, recorded live in Atlanta at DragonCon 2024. The music you heard is Dragons by Alexi Verta. Check the show notes or media tags for links to the artist's website.